Jay does it. He's got his little camera there. He's probably filming atmosphere. You just pop
Nigel, you're on right now, and we'll decide if we want this to be on the net. People really ought to know that since then, the technology is continuing to improve.
Yes.
This camera, and you'll see the output, I'll play it during the tea break. This costs a little over $100. It plugs in to a computer. You don't have to worry about carrying all kinds of cables and things, because if you can see this little USB port, it's on board. And the software is on board. And I was showing this to Rebecca Strohmeyer, and her 6-year-old was watching me. And I said, well, why don't you interview your mom? And he did, on the spot. And we looked at it. It was, you know. So I'll back away, but indeed, technology, hey, cheap. It's called a flip.
It's amazing. So you could use that. We had things that were not quite as small, and we whipped them out and said, could we just capture that? And we'd ask no more than 3 or 4 questions. We had rules. One rule was we didn't want video clips on 5 minutes. It was a good bit boring. 5 minutes was what people covered. And if it was longer and interesting, we cut it up and just put it into. And we put the questions, and then you click on the video clip to get somebody's answer. And we made sure it was incredibly democratic. So we asked some of the most junior people in the organisation, as well as senior people in the organisation. We got some fascinating stuff. We asked the Deputy Director General, Mark Byford, who did his whole career at the BBC. We asked him how he learned, how he stayed motivated, given he spent 28 years or something in the same organisation. Unbelievable. Real insights into not just into the man, but into his relationship with the organisation. And we posted it on the internet. And I had this massive battle to get video accepted because the IT people told me that the internet was not designed for text. And I said, well, let's make it go for video. Did you hear what I said? When we got there was just this explosion of media. Now I would imagine there are tens of thousands of hours downloaded every week. But we started off small, but once we got that agreement, that took off like lightning. So everyone would post, team briefs were posted, people used material for internal training sessions. They would capture their own material and post it back again. So you got this incredible share just around the seeding of 12 DVD cameras, which cost $20,000, $50,000. Virtually nothing. Now there are probably hundreds of little cameras and audio recorders being used around the place. And it's not broadcast quality. It's deliberately not over-edited. You know, it's got maybe a title, and we edit out ums and ahs and try to get to the message. But it's deliberately not trying to make the next great TV program, but on an internet. And that is part of the culture now. And everywhere you go, everybody expects something to be put down on video, which is posted from the very top to the very bottom. Yeah. Yes. Well, what we didn't do was put a battering ram to the door of the IT. Maybe said a very big IT operation, 800 staff, and a much bigger budget than I have. It was something like probably $1 billion Australian dollars. So that was a lot of money. And I, you know, in comparison, I was just a humble nothing in the organisation. I hadn't got that kind of power to wave around. So in the early days, we did naughty things, but in retrospect, the absolutely right things. We created stuff off the network. We had a kind of skunk works, and then we managed to sneak stuff onto the network, which was off the network. So that was kind of isolated from the main network. So it couldn't corrupt it. There was no security issues. We couldn't break the whole system down and give all the BBC secrets away to the entire world. And we got basically tolerated for a while until it became an almost unstoppable mass. And at that point, the IT infrastructure came to us and said, right, how can we mainstream this? And it meant changing the application. So it wasn't easy because they wanted stuff that integrated in with what was called the BBC desktop, which was fine. But they were willing to expend the effort to make that happen in a way they just weren't even prepared to consider it at the beginning. So it was a kind of skunk works. And the other thing, the other tip I would say to you is, we didn't try and force it. There was no point in it. We had a group of enthusiasts and we let it grow. And in some ways, the fact that it was informal, non-official, not you must do this, actually made it grow faster. And I think we would come with a big stick and say, this is the next big thing. Thou shalt, make comments, share your ideas, blog here. They probably would have, because it's that kind of organisation, would have failed to do it. But I get exactly the same issues coming up again and again, working with people. It's really like banks, for example, where on the one hand they've sent a poor learning person out, go explore, go talk to Jay Cross, you get this informal learning. And immediately they come back with ideas, they're just whacked as they go through. And that's the message, I think, is you've got to start small, start with people who want it, if you can get it some way off the beaten track, and just test it out. And I'm always saying to learning leaders, give away your budget. You don't need to control it. Give away your budget, but retain enough to be able to spend. If you want to, if everything's going to pear-shaped, grab hold of the last, however much you can, in order that you can try that kind of stuff. You can, if you like, host it outside the organisation, for example, buy a web hosting. You can create enough space and enough design and enough technology just to get it off the ground, rather than say we must mainstream this from day one, because nothing would delight. Some of the people there that was more see this as rubbish, just cut it down, close it down, and stop it. So it was in that informal way worked really well. Yes.
Concern about industrial environments and perhaps unions or renegades might have when you open up lots of wikis. How did you manage that?
It was fun. To give you an example of how hard it was, that when we started creating what we call VJs, video journalists, i.e. journalists who went out and made their own programs, they went out with their own little cameras, so there was a whole culture change in the organisation. We equipped journalists with a Macintosh with Final Cut Pro and a camera, and they went out and they could shoot stories on their own. But we had massive union problems. They wanted a new classification of stuff. So anyone who touched a video camera, as opposed to someone else touching a video camera, was immediately in a different category of staff and had to have a huge increment of pay, and then they went on to a different pay. So it was just, we can't go there, because eventually everybody was going to be doing this. So the answer was, again, we got some examples of the great stuff that was being created, totally different from the normal 30-second news stories, because people had time. The BBC had 65 camera crews across the whole of the UK. So basically, the 66th story at any one moment, forget it. Whatever it was, forget it. By the time I left, there were 2,500 to 3,000 people trained and equipped to do that. So we talk about incremental leaps forward in terms of the quality of storytelling. So on the one hand, we built up, if like, the propaganda, saying this is the future, this is the way we're going to go, and got the hearts and minds of most people. And then I'm afraid a lot of it was just sitting down and negotiating and saying, we're not going to give in on this.
My question was more about the organisation being concerned about what they're getting released in terms of union activity.
Yes. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yes, absolutely right. There was a huge worry that once you started democratising information, people would be irresponsible, there would be libelous material circulating internally, and someone would leak it to the press, and they would be sued, and goodness knows what happened. What we did was, we created something that we simply called netiquette. Before you got onto anything, there was a little less than a page saying these are the conditions which you go for. You had to agree with it once. You just said, yep, I agree with that. And extraordinarily, the system began to